When people do a job, and if they have an aspiration of doing something in life further, more than understanding what they are doing, I think it is very important for them to understand what the rest of the world around them is doing.
When did this dream of a brand, be it Pintark, Taamaa, Caur?
So in 2011, I was in a meeting with one of the bigger brands, fashion brands in the world. We noticed that they don't put Made in India labels on their product. They said that it brings down the value of the product in people's minds.
Perceived value is less.
Yeah.
Look at me as that guy who wears that 100 rupee t-shirt. If you had to tell me what luxury is, how would you do that?
If you're one of those people who's worked really hard and
Where did you develop this mindset of design, luxury, finish, all of this?
we thought we can't build cars out of scrap. We can't, let's try and do something where people see the jewelry and they should say, oh, this is made out of scrap metal or scrap leather. The beauty of what we do is that the number of materials we end up using, we haven't seen another company in the world using that.
How does Indian artisan craftsmanship come together to all of this?
What has happened for the longest time, and it's still happening,
How do you manage your time between all of these?
I don't set my own calendars. My calendar is set by all the people who are, who need me in different places at different point in time.
What is your take on where this goes?
Why is that the US is the place where you aspire and build dreams? Why is this place not equally good? The opportunity is there, the people is there. There's a 1.5 billion people's market in front of you. Go to them.
So welcome to Creative Spark Plug.
Thank you.
Our podcast is a black book of creative journeys. We speak with creative individuals and record their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives insight into creative lives. It inspires the youngsters. And it nourishes the ones who are feeling challenged. I mean, that's what has kept us going so far.
Great.
So thank you for finding time for us. Today we're talking with Parminder Pal Singh. And he's a super duper senior of mine. He was, when I went into college, he was already a legend. We all knew Parminder and he had this iconic characterization. So if you've seen Parminder once, you would never have forgotten. Broad shoulders, kind of leanish guy, hair always tied in a pony at the back, little stubble of a beard. And he had his own swagger. And that's how we remember Bubbles. Better known as Bubbles, actually, Parminder Pal Singh was like, ye kiska naam hai types. So that's how we know him. I don't think so he ragged us. In those days, it was allowed. I'm not promoting anything. He was very nice and polite. And so has he been today as well. So Parminder, over to you. I'm going to continue to call you Bubbles from here onwards. Parminder niklega nahi, thoda ajeeb sa hai.
Yeah, I know. Nobody actually knows me by that name.
Yeah.
Except for my schoolmates for about 6-7 years. Nobody otherwise knows me by that name. I mean, now if somebody calls me Parminder, I have to think, वो मेरे से ही बात कर रहे हैं ना, मेरे को ही बुला रहे हैं. And then it takes me right back to school. So it's I react very well to Bubbles. Don't worry about it.
What do your clients call you?
So some who like to be formal, they still call me Parminder, but 95% of them would call me Bubbles.
Bubbles. And how do you introduce yourself to somebody new?
Well, when somebody takes my card, I actually hand out my card and then I take it back and write it with the pen Bubbles, because otherwise they would never remember whose card it was.
Right.
Yeah, so most people would know me by my nickname.
So I was curious to start this conversation with 97 you graduated.
Yeah.
And you occasionally dropped by and we saw you in college. But now I'm curious to know, what is your Calcutta Connect, Chandigarh Connect, and where all have you been before I saw you at NIFT Accessory Design Department? Ki yaar, ye to wo senior hai.
I was born in Punjab in a village called Surgapuri. So it's my Nani's house, and beautiful place. There were 2 canals. And then there was a small canal that came out of it, and our house was the first one on the corner. So, and all you could see was green fields and then small little, we call them tibba. It's like dunes at the distance. So that's my first memory of my childhood. And then I moved to my father's village soon after, studied for about a year and a half in the village school. My mom also used to teach there. Some really fond memories. I was all of 4.5, 5. But I can remember, snippets of it. And then I was sent to a boarding school, which is in Dalhousie in Himachal.
Right.
I was 5.5 at that point in time. My cousin, who was 3 years older than me, he was already there. Again, amazing memories of that place. From there, I moved to Chandigarh to Patiala. Patiala is my primary education, which was like from 6th standard to 10th, I was there. Then I went to Chandigarh, joined the college, flunked 11th, then rejoined the school in Chandigarh, did my 11th, 12th there. And after that, we moved to. Meanwhile, my parents were in Calcutta. Family had moved in the 60s to. My father's eldest brother had moved to Cal in the 60s. We ran a huge garage in the middle of Cal. You're familiar with Cal, so I can name a few places. Shambazar.
Shambhajar.
So between Shambazar and Dunlop, there's a place called Ghoshpada.
Absolutely.
Yes, Ghoshpada is where we lived, and the garage was there. So all my childhood, all my summer holidays, my playground was that huge garage in the middle of Calcutta.
Nice.
So we've seen, engines being opened in front of us and lathes being run and, jacks being made and batteries being opened up and overhauled and stuff like that. So I think amazing education there, because by the time I was 7.5, 8, I knew how a combustion engine runs. I was told. I mean, I didn't know the terms,
Right.
but I knew exactly what the function of each thing was. But we played marbles with ball bearings,
Nice.
flew kites on the back of truck. That's our childhood. My brother was in Calcutta at that point in time, and then from there, in '86, my father moved to Ahmedabad, so right across. My Tayaji stayed in Cal, and we moved to Ahmedabad. It was apparently expansion of business, which didn't quite work out, I think, for them. So after finishing 12th, I went back to Ahmedabad, did my graduation from there, and then moved to NIFT. And I've been in Delhi ever since.
Right.
Yeah, so that was all the cities that I've been before coming to
Which
Gurgaon.
is why you can probably speak Gujarati as well as you can speak Bengali.
So Bengali, I could read, write, speak fluently. Guju, my brother is really fluent at. But by the time I went there, all my friends were all from boarding schools, even in Ahmedabad. So we all spoke English and Hindi, mostly amongst ourselves.
Right.
And you can get by, by speaking Hindi in Ahmedabad. English wasn't the best in Ahmedabad. There was barely an English school in Ahmedabad at that point in time. But now, it's a different city altogether. So yeah,
So how did NIFT happen? I mean, what out of this background connects the dots to NIFT?
I was just coming to that part of it.
Right.
You've had a background of automobiles and all of these from the garage. How did you get to this? Why NIFT? How NIFT? And how did you get to the creative side? What started that? And not just started, but what you've gotten here that we see, it takes another mindset. So how did you get to that?
I was always very good at drawing and stuff like that, right from childhood. I remember if I wrote a letter back home, it used to be 6 sentences, and after that it was artworks. And my Tayaji would look at it and he would be fearful. He would feel really proud, that my 7-year-old son has drawn a picture. So I was always encouraged. I never felt as if, I needed to curb that. And I remember all my art teachers, right from KG standard. So I had that instinct always. But then as I was growing up, I never had any direct ambitions in terms of this is what I want to do. I want to be an architect, or I want to be a product designer or an artist or nothing. Till date, I don't think I'm very ambitious. It's not like personal ambitions are very, very, very low. But after I graduated from Ahmedabad, I did economic honors there. That's when, for the first time, my father actually challenged me, कि यार इतना पढ़ाया लिखाया and you've done nothing. I mean, what's economics honors in those days? Engineer, doctor, this, that. So that was the benchmark. So then I said, I'm going to do an MBA. So he said, okay. So for the first time in my life, I picked up books really, and I studied really hard. And I appeared for every exam that came my way, from IIM to XLRI to IIFE. NIFT also happened to be a part of that. So that's how it wasn't like I'd planned to join NIFT or something. So I'd cleared CAT. I couldn't clear IIM Ahmedabad, but MICA was a part of CAT at that point in time. So and the first batch of MICA had just started. So that's when I joined MICA, and I was there for about a month and a half, and a call came from NIFT, and Shaina, who's my wife, and we'd studied together since we were, I think, 11 years old. We started dating when we were 15. She was in Delhi. तो मैंने कहा क्या मायका है let's go to NIFT. So honestly, there was no plan as such. I actually didn't know what accessory design meant. Nothing whatsoever. So it was a very interesting incident. I used to go to the British Library in Ahmedabad, and I would sit there and I would prepare for, all the interviews and stuff like that. So you had to read and read all the time. And when the NIFT clearance letters came to me, there were 7 streams. I'd cleared 6. So I went to that lady. I'm like, these letters have come now. अब इसका ये होता क्या है? What is AMM, LGDT, FD, AD? So she's like, do you really want to join these places? मैं यार, there is an intention, but you need to explain to me as to what exactly this is. And so very sweetly, she pulled out 3 books and she put them on the table in front of me. And she said, like, this is for this stream, that is for that stream. So you go through them and see what interests you. So while I was looking at that, I found this book on jewelry by Lalik. I saw the cover and I'm like, yeah, this is nice. And when I opened the book and I saw 2-3 pages, I'm like, yes, ye karna. This is what I would enjoy. Because even when I used to draw, I was very, very detailed in my drawings. So I found that amazing jewelry by Lalik and art during that period. So that's really the inspiration behind the stream, that is accessories and products. But the real inspiration was, getting together with my girlfriend again after years was the real story.
Sweet, but makes sense totally.
Yeah, so that was it. That's how I
You
came to
reached
Delhi.
NIFT.
Exactly.
Which was that one stream you did not get selected?
I think it was AMM, I think.
And that
Apparel marketing and merchandising.
Apparel marketing and merchandising. And I'm really glad I didn't, because I would never be able to do that.
So you graduated in 97, and 97 to 2011.
Yeah.
It's about almost 13 to 14 years of a gap. And we hear about LOCO Design, which is co-founded by you, Sukhvinder and you, your brother and you.
Yeah.
That's 2011.
Yeah.
इस बीच में बहुत सारी कहानियां हो गई. I know you started off with freelancing,
Yeah.
but बहुत कुछ हुआ इस बीच में.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we had some kind of an interface with EPCH or something like that. Buying houses, 2003?
Possible. Yeah, possible. I can't, I don't particularly remember that.
Yeah. I'm recalling from the time because I was working there then. Those was my last 2 years in Delhi. I had graduated in 2002. So for a year and a half, I was with Mukul.
Goel,
Yeah.
Okay.
And you were the leather guy. He was like, makes very good leather furniture. And that was the...
We used to do mostly smaller goods at that point in time.
Right.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a few things connected to the course. Because generally accessories design, when in a layman's head, like in my head, it's about smaller components, like you said, jewelry.
Yeah.
So jewelry design or smaller components, and it can be anything which are not more than 6 inches by 6 inches. That's my thinking. I could be
bags and shoes and any wearables, and that was the primary focus.
You trained in that in college, or that was like after you finished your economics, you went there.
Yeah.
So that was a post-graduation.
No. It was, so I did my graduation twice. I did economics honors and psychology in Ahmedabad, and then I came and joined NIFT and in undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah.
He wanted to go for MBA, but instead he did this.
Yeah.
And we know the reason now why.
So it was, what I found really interesting in that program is that it didn't teach you about jewelry or bags per se. The way the whole curriculum was structured, I'm sure you interact with Jatin now.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jatin Bhatt, who was our HOD, his dream to make something like that happen. Quite revolutionary in the way it was structured. Completely different than the rest of the NIFT. All the other departments function differently. And AD functioned completely differently. It was more to do with design methodology. And what was really good about it, it was very business focused. It wasn't कि आपको, you have to make something beautiful, because that's design invariably gets misunderstood, that just by embellishing things you're actually becoming a better designer. So that's my first understanding of that program. And I think because of the structure of that, there is no fear in terms of what can or what cannot be done. So it's never happened that somebody's come with a product or a challenge, and we've had to think कि हम कर पाएंगे कि नहीं कर पाएंगे, or is it possible or not possible. As soon as I graduated, I was doing Republic Day jhankies for Ministry of Textiles with the AD department. I was doing exhibition design, and I was doing photography for people. So multiple different things came about. I was also freelancing for some export houses, doing mood boards for them, doing photography for them, doing product design for them. So it was all over the place, everything, whatever came my way. But all really interesting work. It's planned that you have to be an accessory designer. If people took it seriously and understood really what the gist of that program was, it could guide you amazingly well. And there was a segment of it which was called design methodology, for example. Nobody really remembers that segment.
Yeah, I did it thrice.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was, and it was some of the details of that program. For example, and I remember one very, very clearly. You are given a chance to do a survey, and you have to put together let's say a questionnaire. First, you have to select the product, and then you have to design the questionnaire in such a way that you can actually get the gist of it, and you can actually analyze it and give a result of. I mean, it's not that you had to go out and do the survey, but you had to design the questionnaire, which I thought was such a brilliant thing. And then it was, how much do you want to challenge yourself? I mean, even then, I actually sat back, and as I used to wonder as to, why would you not ask difficult questions? So I picked up sanitary napkins as product, and it took a lot of courage to put down those questions, being a male, as to how would I actually structure those questions and ask, some ladies about sanitary napkins. So it is those small snippets, which made all the difference. And there were, incidents that happened which, like in one sentence, transformed your way of thinking. So it was never about those small trinkets. It was about a larger program. And if you understood that really, and you could understand the structure of it, there's nothing that would stop you.
The reason why I asked is now 30, 40 years later, you are...
Why make me sound really old, man?
3 decades later.
Yeah, 3 decades later. That sounds better, yeah.
So coming to the current day, the setup that you have and the products that you're designing, do you see a connection between what you studied in and what you're doing at the moment? Or, I mean, has that led you to this? Because generally when we do an education, we either get stuck in that and say that this is what we have to pursue. And a lot of us end up doing just that. So we are either just thinking in a straight line, but considering that you started off as an accessories designer and moved to the space that you are in today, there is a wide gap that has been covered.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that, on the education and the end profession that you choose? What, as a designer or as a creative person?
So I think I've been very lucky, because I've had, my parents weren't like the most educated people. They were extremely liberal in the way they thought. I think moving to Calcutta made them think differently. And both my parents are extremely progressive in their thinking, and like to send a 5-year-old kid, your first child, to a boarding school wasn't the easiest decision. I'm talking about way back in 70s, it's a late 70s. Like I can understand what pressure they must have gone through when the rest of the family would have said, little child, why are you sending him? You don't love him, this, that, and the other. All sorts of pressures would have come. But when you come from that kind of a background and you accept it, that this is why they've done this. And I was lucky that I understood it very early. Maybe not then, but maybe by the time I was 10, 11, I could understand clearly as to why I was sent to a boarding school. I wouldn't change one day of my life in that regard. So as you progress, you realize that you need to look at and understand as to all the people around you. What are they trying to teach you? And you get the best out of it and then start applying it in your own life. So it's not only the program that has made me the way I am, it is also all the people who have been instrumental in making me think the way I think. I come from a Sikh family. I'm a Sardar, but we are known to be, pehle karo fir socho. And if there is something that needs to get done between Sukhi and I, we don't analyze things. We've reached that point where most people would actually sit back and say, "Yaar, is there a risk or not?" We don't think like that. We say, "Okay, what's the next step? What's the next progressive step in this line?" And we just take it. We just move forward, and that's the way we've built ourselves. Now, coming back to NIFT and the education, and before that, it was economics honors, which helped me a lot because it made me understand a part of the world that I would have never otherwise touched. Zabardasti, I had to do economics honors because that was the only option available to me at that point in time. But today I understand that there's value in that. Psychology, for example, there is value in it. And then when you apply your learnings from there, you can see when you're talking to a client, you're talking to a friend, you're talking to a potential customer, all that is applicable. I'm not one of those people who will sit back and say, education is this or education is that. Education is what you make of it, at the end of the day. We were lucky in NIFT, especially because the structure of education was planned so beautifully by Jatin and his team. And there were like amazing teachers who didn't come there to teach. They were more like guides who were just nudging you towards a direction. And it was up to you. Most parents would have complained, my kid doesn't have homework. She finished 20 drawings by, she got 3 out of 10 and stuff like that. But this was different. This was, so because of that, today, if if there is something that comes along and somebody says, can you guys design this or can you guys produce this? It's, no fear at all. No fear at all. Yeah.
I'm curious about, we know why you made the decisions and all of that. Once you came out, we also know that you started freelancing.
Yeah.
And did you not look for a job, or was the terrain of the industry different? Because I would assume, you being the first few batches, you had to, before you sold yourself, you probably had to sell the course. Or what is accessory design would probably have been a very standard question.
Well, personally, I never felt that I would ever be able to fit into a job, because I felt, even during my graduation project, which was in jewelry, I felt that I invest myself to a point where it almost becomes obsessive. And that in a corporate structure is not healthy. And luckily I realized that it is not, it's not in my nature to do things without feeling that I own them, or I own this, that it is mine and I have to do it. So because of that reason, I realized that, maybe the industry is not structured enough the way I need to function or I function. It may be a misfit in the industry structure. But most people would take misfit as a negative context. I would think that I knew that I was built for more, and I knew that the aspirations, not ambitions, but aspirations were very different. If I wasn't making a difference in to the people around me and a wider context, then it was pointless for me. So job was never the idea.
Right.
I don't think it has ever crossed my mind, like I should have taken up a job. Never ever. It's like, so I don't know. It's probably in my nature. So
it's interesting you're saying that, because you're talking about in your early 20s.
Late 20s. I was 27 by the time I graduated.
Right. So even in your 20s, to have that awareness that this is me, and being able to make a choice based on the awareness of the self, that yaar, मैं इस चीज के लिए बना नहीं हूँ, naturally this is who I am. Right? For example, people say,
I thought of it slightly differently. They will not be able to handle me.
Nice.
It was more like that.
Right. No, I completely hear you, because I think once you're aware of something about yourself, and if you can hold it in the same way and look at it like that, and not look at it as a deficiency in you, But the fact that these two contexts, the context of a corporate job and you as somebody who potentially can work there, they are incompatible, is a lot of awareness and prudence.
That is true. It's almost like choosing a family, you.
Yeah. मतलब incompatibility comprehend करना थोड़ा मुश्किल है because it's quantify करना उसको थोड़ा सा मुश्किल है. Maybe, but you're probably, the psychology background probably helped you do that or discern it well.
Yeah, I don't think I analyzed it so much. I just knew कि यार ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा.
ये नहीं.
I don't think it will work.
So you started freelancing. At what point of time did you? I mean, there's still a big decade in between before LOCO Design happened.
Yeah.
I did witness the jhanki and all of that. There was Anna and there was a workshop and I was a junior then.
Yeah.
And all of that was exciting to see.
Yeah.
I don't know who stole Anna's compressor to paint.
I have no clue. No clue. That's a mystery still.
Anna was, I mean, everybody loves Anna. He's helped us all and he's extremely endearing. He was the lab assistant then. So somebody had to paint something. I think it's झांकी के time पे ही. And सवेरे आके देखते हैं कि उसका स्कूटर छोड़ के गए वो रात को. सवेरे आके देखते हैं कि उनका स्कूटर में कंप्रेसर गायब है. Somebody's actually taken it and used it to paint, spray paint. किसने क्या भगवान जाने, बट ये एक ड्रामा था. इनको पता होगा. झांकी स्प्रे करता.
No clue. I didn't, for sure. Maybe we were working together on that, making the model and stuff like that. So
you still in touch with him?
Off and on, just fleetingly if we meet at a event or something like that, but not so much, unfortunately.
Right.
My loss, actually.
No, I mean it's I understand. Life kind of moves on. At what point of time after this did you start kind of putting a structure or a framework to what we see as LOCO Design? Was it happening in your mind, or did you start a studio, or were you collaborating already? So
I was freelancing, like I told you, for a few exporters, and I saw that there is a huge gap and in the industry. Meanwhile, my brother, who was in Ahmedabad and running the transport company, and the unsaid rule between us has always been kicked. Everything is together. There is nothing which is separate. So luckily, again, it's a virtue of growing up in a family which was always together, and we've never been taught to say mera. Even with my cousins, even if I'm talking about his car, his property, I will always say apna, apni gadi, apni car, apna kar, whatever. So it was in the family culture. But more so, there was a silent rule in the family. He slogged his ass off, while I was studying. I was so pissed off one day, and because I didn't have money, and I wrote a letter back. In those days, I used to write letters. So I wrote a letter back and say, I don't even have money to get a decent cup of coffee. And he tells my father, he says, your son drinks coffee nowadays. So when the money came in, there was also a note along with it, for your school fees, this, that, and the other, and a decent cup of coffee. Nice. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, those are small things in life. I think it is. So the idea was to also bring him in. And while I was working on design, it was difficult for me to figure out how do we fit this whole thing together. I mean, we needed to put all the pieces of puzzle together. There's an amazing man I had met at that point in time, and Mr. Shoknath. He used to run a company called Accents for Living. I used to freelance for him, and I remember I was when I decided that I'm going to go to Ahmedabad and get him here, get Sukhi here to Delhi. I was driving back with Mr. Shoknath, and when on the way, I told him that my brother is going to come and join me, and this, that, and the other. Mr. Ashok was very fond of me, and I'm still equally fond of him. And so when he parked his car, he said, you remember one thing. I said, yeah. Don't ever bring a young man in your life if you can't make his life. And, for a minute, before that, it was like, ye to karna hi hai. But that was the only minute when I actually thought, holy crap. I mean, he's going to be here. What am I going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to make things happen? Probably the only time when the non-Sardar came into my head and said, you need to have a plan. But anyway, when he came along, we were here, and then the opportunities were few for that situation. So we set up a small factory. We started doing production for different export houses. But at the same time, we also realized, I mean, I was also freelancing for other people at that time. But there was a huge gap in the industry that, what a client wanted sitting in the US versus what was understood by the people who were sitting in India were two different stories completely. There was no AutoCAD, there was no 3D studio, this, that, and the other. There were only references, hand sketches. And so it was open for interpretation. And there were so many people in the middle, like the buying agencies, then the owners, then the merchants, then the craftsmen, and then the junior craftsmen. So everybody was interpreting the way they understood it. And by the end of it, the product that came out was completely different than what it needed to be.
Right.
So we realized that is a gap. And that's where design intervention could help.
Right.
So we started with picking up that little detail, saying that we'll sit with the buyers, with the exporters, and we will figure out what they want and then draw out and get things done.
Nice.
That was the start point of the whole thing.
Right.
If we drew, then the samples were terrible. Again, everybody was on their own trip. So we started making samples for people. Then if we made samples, the production was terrible. Then we started producing for people. So by the time we started in 99, 2000, something like that, to 2003, 4, from 3 people in the factory, we were 500 people. So we just grew rapidly at that point in time. And regardless of, we didn't know how to cost the product. We didn't know how to, it was random. Everything was random, learn along the way. Let's see what happens. Lost money sometimes, made some money. Whatever we made, we put it back into the company, kept growing. Nothing came back home. Wives were screaming all the time, but they supported us throughout. So it was nice. It was, and then that was basically how it
Started.
How it,
I want to kind of dig deep into this because, see, a lot of people who are going to hear us are going to emulate you. उनको भी bubbles बनना रहेगा अपने तरीके से.
Yeah, hopefully not the way.
Of course.
The way we did. It's not easy. Again, going back, we are very fortunate people that we don't question things. It's not, everybody's not built like that. It's not their cup of coffee to, because they will question every single day. They will question their getting up and wearing their shoes, and they will question their getting into the car and getting to the work. So everything is the process. For us, that doesn't matter. There is no thought about कि कैसे करना है, बस करना है. And we work it backwards. So it's always reverse engineering. कि ये करना है, ऐसे करना है. So it's never like we'll
Target
get here.
and plan.
Yeah. So it's always that way. So even while we set up the, this thing, and initially it was just about design and production. We realized that we had grown at such a pace that we lost that about, where are we going? We didn't think कि हमें ये करना है. It was, it came our way, and we couldn't, and it couldn't have been stopped. It was literally like that. But at that point in time, we realized that we need to cut this down and go back into more design and quality focused, products, because one, the amount of time that we were investing in that, again, same old story. It's too much investment of personal self into the whole thing. You work for 14, 18 hours all the time. Factory was in Faridabad, lived in Gurgaon, 1.5 hours going, 1.5 hours coming. And so there were lots of things that played up. And that's when we realized that, we need to do what we really need to do, what we are meant to do. So again, sat back and we said, let's only focus on design and production.
When you say we, you're talking about Sukhi and you.
Yeah.
By and large.
Yeah. So if we told our father we are cutting down from 450 people to 150 people, he would simply say, what happened? Did he lose money? Did he loss ho gaya? We would say, no, I think we needed to change direction. अच्छा, चलो ठीक है, तुसी जो कर रहे हो ठीक ही होना है. It was just that, and it was just in one sentence. It was all put aside. When people like that are with you, you don't think too much. You're like, let's get on.
Okay.
So when we cut down on the number of people that we hired and refocused on the design side of it, things fell in place somehow. We started getting queries, and some really super high brands from across the world started reaching out. And from 2006 to 2011, we were working with 3-4 like really well-known brands. There was a journey. Yeah.
Tell me something, Bubbles. Freelance and all of this, and I see the process in terms of, ये नहीं कंट्रोल हो रहा, चलो उसको कंट्रोल करते हैं. अच्छा, उनसे नहीं बन रहा है, खुद ही बना लेंगे, चलो अपना वर्कशॉप सेटल करो. And you're still talking about 10 people to 450 people.
Yeah.
That's liability. 450 लोग यार, मतलब.
Yeah.
मतलब with admiration,
Yeah.
appreciation both, but I'll be curious because यार 450 लोगों का ख्याल रखना, तो कम से कम आधे लोगों का फैमिली होगा.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's also there was a reason why we also were invested in those people, is that also Sukhi and I have never thought of it as just our operation. It is everybody who's involved. So if you talk to people or if you meet people who've worked with us for a long period of time, nobody will actually say कि वो company उनकी है या वो है. They may say they are the bosses, but हमारी है. So the way the whole everything has been structured and everything and the kind of liberties we've given people and the way we've given them confidence, in terms of the way we are, you too can make mistakes. We are okay to make mistakes. You also have an equal right to make mistakes. So we may have lost money because of our mistakes. We may have lost money because of somebody else's mistake. Everything's forgotten.
How did you guys create the initial financial requirement for this to even initiate? Because that would not have been easy for somebody who's in your early 30s at the most.
Yeah, I mean, Sukhi was at that point in time 20, 25, 26 when we started. I was 20, 28, 29.
Yeah,
something
matlab
like
late
that.
20s.
Yeah. So zero money. We didn't ask. I mean, the day I graduated, I remember, telling him that after today, if you ever give me a single rupee, I'll pay interest to you. He laughed it off, but we stood by it. We said never ever. So we never borrowed any money from dad. We never asked for it. It was just, we've grown, over the years, reinvested, and we were ready to do anything as long as we enjoyed it. Like, we used to make these small pouches for some manufacturer in Tughlakabad, and we were given a labor rate of 6.5 rupees on that
Per piece.
per piece. Our saving was, after calculating everything, was 60 to 70 paise. But we did it. The journey to go and pick up the material, to come back, and then to go and deliver and then come back were the best times we had. Like sitting on the bike or on a car and joking about everything. And so it was never a why are we doing this? It was simple. We don't have money. We need to make it any which way. If it's 500 rupees by the end of the day, let it be. That's what it's going to be. But it needs to keep going. It needs to keep feeding itself. That's the intention. And nowadays it's so much more easier in that regard that you can raise funds and stuff like that. We could have also, but that's not a choice that we made because, I mean, we had that confidence that yaar, ho jayega, it'll get done. At some point in time we'll reach that point. And then support system was great. So yeah.
What did you call yourselves then when you guys started off? And how did you introduce yourself as somebody who's just designers can pull off all kinds of creative requirements? Or was there a specific pitch? Like today, if somebody wants to start, there's this question about what is your pitch. What was your pitch in 2002 की बात कर रहे हैं हम, 2001 की बात कर रहे हैं.
हाँ.
दो भाई आ गए, एक डिजाइनर है.
Yeah.
तो क्या pitch क्या होता था आपका?
So luckily for me, I already had connections with a whole lot of these exporters. So we just told them कि यार हमने ये शुरू कर लिया है. And see, that's the beauty of having good relationships with people, I think. Mr. Ashoknath, because we had a leather unit, said, अच्छा आज के बाद हम leather के lamp बनाएंगे.
Nice.
It wasn't like that guy is asking for it. ऐसे हम leather के lamp बनाएंगे. तू या मेरे को cushion cover बना दे. तेरे को तू जो बना सकता है बना दे. It was like that. So, and then there were other other friends in the export industry, they said, let's, what can you do for us? This is the unit that we have. Acha, theek hai, make it. It was never, I mean, that's the thing. I think when you kept your bridges alive and when you don't burn your bridges, people will come and fetch you from the other side. You don't necessarily need to cross them all the time. They will fetch you. And people did. I don't think I need to be grateful to them because it was an exchange at the end of the day. Even our respect for each other was an exchange. They were gaining equally from that relationship as I was and I am. So there is no need for one to be eternally grateful to people, but that's what kept us also at the level playing field. Even today, we are still friends. We're not. He wasn't an employer, and we weren't suppliers. We were all friends, and even with most of the people that we work with today, and they may be brands from across the world and whoever they are, we work on equal grounds. It's taken us a long time to get here, but we play on equal grounds. It's not कि हम supplier हैं, India से हैं, गरीब country है, ये है वो है. None of that. Sitting on the table, this is the product. You need it and I need it. Let's get it done. That's the attitude. Yeah.
A couple of quick inquiries.
Hanji.
When your brother joined you, what happened to dad's business?
Dad had already almost semi-retired,
Okay.
kind of a thing. So he wanted, like all good Sardars, they all want to go back to Punjab at some point in time. So he had no reason to carry it on. So he just, sold the trucks and came back to Punjab.
And the family business in Calcutta?
Actually, when my dad moved to Ahmedabad, the family had separated. So each one had kept separate businesses. So my dad chose to came to Ahmedabad because I think there was some ONGC contract or something like that that he had got. So my Tayaji kept the garage. He's the one who started it. He was a leader of the
And
family.
your brother, did he do any design? Does he have any design background? Or
he couldn't draw a straight line. Now every now and then I see him, he tries to doodle, which is a good thing, I think. But no, he's an amazing people's person. I think he's very good at keeping, everybody on ground. So whether it is people working in the factory or, government officials and this, that, and the other, he's great with all that. So we can't all be doing the same thing, and that's the beauty of it. So I do my bit, he does his bit, and there are 1,500 other people who do their bit, and we are all.
So from moving out of NIFT as a designer to setting up a unit with 400-500 people required a lot of business sense, which your brother already had. And you by default also
both of us
had
are good at acumen. Business, because of our family, I think it is.
But in an organized segment, having org structures, who heads who, all of that requires a completely different mindset. Because the reason why I say is I'm an architect. I was forced to get into my family business after about 8-9 years of practicing architecture.
Yeah.
So when I went in there, I was zero with business. I was very happy designing buildings, and like my dad says, line marne. I was like, आप architect लोग करते क्या, line ही तो मारते हो.
Yeah, I know they still say that, no? No matter how big an architect you are.
So from there to heading a business, it requires a completely different mindset. So how did you develop that? Did you get some support from somewhere? Did you do any additional courses, or how did that happen?
So coming from a business family, it helped. We've seen our father since our childhood running a business, and I remember every morning there used to be this gentleman, Mr. Bhattacharji, who used to come home, and he would delegate certain amount of work to him, and then Mr. Bhattacharji would execute everything, and by the evening would report back to him. Small things. My Tayaji used to sit in one room, and every department in the garage. It was quite a large setup in those days. Having maybe 200 mechanics in a garage was a huge thing. And he would be sitting there, and he would be telling people what to do and what not to do and stuff like that. And everybody, they were like department heads and stuff. So structure was, I think we understood it because of it's become inherent. But when we started the business, there was one call that we had taken, which I thought is a really great call. We don't have production supervisors in most of the departments in the factory, and there are 1,500 people working. There are departments where there are 300 people working with one senior craftsmen heading that entire space. And then if we had chosen, let's say, a design professional or a production professional to be in his place, I don't think they could understand the problems as clearly as this gentleman can, because he has worked with his own hands and he knows exactly what kinds of problems one may face. So every time there's a production issue, we actually discuss with them. There are things that we find solutions for, are things that they find solutions for. The rest of it, we've seen the industry and wherever we've gone. And that's the one thing I think which is extremely important. When people do a job, and if they have an aspiration of doing something in life further, more than understanding what they are doing, I think it is very important for them to understand what the rest of the world around them is doing. There's a structure for it. There is a need for every person. It's like a well-greased engine, needs even the smallest ball bearing for the engine to run. Even that falling apart can break down the entire engine. So if you're not observant and if you don't understand as to why people are required in certain positions, then you'd never be able to run a business. Delegation, extremely important. We learned it in our childhood. We noticed it all the time around ourselves. If I'm sitting here talking to you today, is because I know that there are 100 people doing their own thing. I mean, they know it is theirs. They know that they need to achieve it. And it's a culture that you inculcate. In our setup, if a person does not come with that mindset or does not build that mindset after coming here, they don't last very long. Not because we don't know how to talk to them anymore, and they probably feel left out or they feel guilty that they are not being able to deliver like the rest of them. And the peer pressure is something which, which plays on everybody's minds. And if there is a junior who comes in, we don't sit down and teach them things. We just say, observe, talk to this person, talk to that person. If there's an intern who's come to the office, we don't have an agenda to teach them. We'll say, you spend 2 days with this person, 2 days with that person. After observing for that person for 2 days, you come back to me and you ask me questions as to what did you see and what answers do you want as to whatever you saw there. What is the reason behind it? You have to build those questions and ask me a question. I'm not going to come and ask you, what did you learn? Right? If you don't have a question, either you are not observing them at all, or you've understood it completely. At that stage, I will ask you a question. Right? Then I have the right to ask you a question because you've come as an intern. So when people set up, business is really about making sure that all your transactions, whether they are emotional transactions, financial transactions, interpersonal transactions, all those transactions need to be balanced in a certain way. As long as you understand it, I think you could be successful. And we make mistakes on a daily basis, but we learn and we move on. It is difficult to let go, which is probably the most difficult part of a creative journey. When you have to let go for somebody else to be a part of the creation of a product which you are going to call your own, most difficult bit. It's like bringing up a child in your, and handing it out to a nanny. I mean, she may be doing an absolutely brilliant thing, but how much can you trust? It is important. So that's the difficulty that most creative people have. And if they can't, and if you understand that I can't let go, it is okay. Then you run a small team, but you run a team with a certain kind of a focus. You only want to do a certain kind of work because you only have, your only currency is 8 to 10 hours to 12 hours in a day. That's all you have. That's what you exchange with anybody who's going to come to you for a service or a product. If you are trying to fill in too much into those 12 hours, all you're doing is giving very little time to everything. So either if you can't do everything on your own, if you can't delegate, take lesser, but do it really well. But if you want to do a lot, then you learn how to delegate. So it's simply an exchange of time. If you balance it out, then it works.
Yeah. I'm still curious about that phase wherein there are multiple things happening as I hear from him. He's figuring a space out. He's found a gap in the market and he's going in, right? In Sardar mode. Kar lete, baad mein sochenge. And now you've got a comrade in arms, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, I am personally not bothered about usko सीधा line बनाना आता है कि नहीं. He's a comrade, साथ में है. And that itself is a lot of help, if you ask me. I mean, the fact that he's a people person and can work his way through with people, it's bonus in some sense. But yeah, you guys can play ball together and move on. At one point of time, you guys had 3 guys and you take it up to 450.
Yeah.
Right? That's scaling. And that's not scaling, that's massive scaling. And especially something that's not thought through. Right? Now, I don't want to consider the fact that you guys got lucky. I think everybody needs a little bit of luck. Great, it was with you.
Yeah.
But ऐसा तो नहीं कि आपका कुछ नहीं लगा है उसमें या Sukhi did not play a role, something like that. While this journey may have been organic and you guys walked through every crack in the door that you guys saw, what was this experience of scaling and what were the possible risks involved and how did you maneuver through that? That was your first scaling exercise, right?
Yeah. That was the first time we actually, just blew it out of proportion.
Yeah, it's a 150x.
Yeah.
So basically, what was this first scaling? I mean, there too, it is the first time you're doing something right and you're going in through every door. What was that like? What were the risks involved? How did you wing it? What are the things that you may not do the same way right now?
If I have to break it down to like absolute basic, they're just 2 things: it's time and money. Those are the only 2 things that you expand or contract, right? The risk involved was that, are we investing too much time going in the wrong direction? But that question never arose. So direction was never a risk. Giving it too much time and not giving family enough time, that was a risk. That's the thing that we would change. Money-wise, as long as you're growing, and we didn't have to go to a bank to borrow or something like that, there was no risk. It's not that we came with $1 million and we invested it. We started from zero. So everything was growth. So we didn't need to worry about, that aspect of it. But yes, are we in the right direction was a question that eventually hit us. And that was, would I do it in the same way, barring the distance that we had traveled, every day? I would change that bit maybe, but everything else, I think there was not a moment when we were not learning something. It's like, it was 6 years of a really rigorous graduation project. and what those 5 to 6 years have done for us is what we till date carry, because we know how to break every single product down right to the last paisa. So that education does not come to you if you have come with a structured backdrop, if you already know how to cost your product. Because we found innovative ways of doing things because there was nobody else to teach us. So if we had to hit a price point, we had to find the way out because there was nobody else who was doing something like that. So education-wise, it was fantastic. I mean, we are what we are today because of those 4 to 5 years. So there was no risk per se. I wouldn't worry about the risk part of it.
This is the first setup, 3 people to 450 people, workshop and all of that. And did the first brand get created in that process, or were you guys?
So we run a company called Caur, which is a part of the group, in which we do OEM design and production for different brands. In those days, the design factor was much lesser, but if I can think back, it was still a very important bit, because when 10 people put their product on the table, ours was simply superior because we had that input. Even if it was changing one seam, it was design at the end of the day. So that probably helped a lot. Sorry, I lost track of your question.
Yeah. So where I was getting to was, of course, the scaling aspect of it. The second bit about it was how we are maneuvering through that process. So this input is absolutely fine. It will go as an anecdotal story probably. So while we are doing this, we are maneuvering through this process and the question was whether the first brand that you created, which was the first brand, Taamaa?
Taamaa came after LOCO was created.
So Caur was the one that took over your OEM. Did that become the financial backbone which allowed you to keep afloat? Because I've heard of Caur a while ago. I'll tell you who is to mention it quite a bit. Of course, there was Imran and there was Prithviraj Das, artist.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So from both of them, I've heard Caur Indie quite a bit. This is a while ago, yeah.
Yeah. So it still carries on. That's our production house.
Right.
So Caur Indie today is a brand in itself, because what happens is that when it comes to the OEM business, like everybody in the US knows Caur Indie. It's anybody who's starting a new lifestyle business, anybody who's doing anything high end, we are probably one of the few factories that always get mentioned in the first list. And we've got a really sweet niche. Anything that anybody else in the world can't do falls on our table, because that's still the Sardar's. Like, we'll take on a challenge. Just tell us what exactly do you want designed, or what exactly do you want made. So
that 450 was Caur Indie.
yeah,
That wasn't LOCO Design at all.
no.
Right. And when did this dream of a brand, be it Pintark, Taamaa, Caur?
So in 2011, I think I was in New York, and I was in a meeting with one of the bigger brands, fashion brands in the world. So and we noticed, we started working with them in 2006, and we still work with them after 20 years. And we noticed that they don't put made in India labels on their product.
Okay.
So it was always on the gift box, and it was always a tearaway sticker which said made in India, because it's a law that you have to mention country of origin. And it was a tearaway sticker, obviously, because when they were shipping locally, they would take that off and ship it. Because by law, it is, you can't import without that label, but you can, after that, repack and ship. Right? So there's nobody stopping you. And a gift box is a part of the product. So the packaging, if the product is in a certain kind of a packaging, and you're shipping with the packaging, then that whole thing is a product. So they were putting it on the box on the outside. And I asked them, I said, listen, you put a made in Czech Republic, you put made in Romania, you made in England, made in Italy, everywhere. Why is it that you don't put made in India label on it? They said that it brings down the value of the product in people's minds.
Perceived value is less.
Yeah, because nobody in the Western world perceived Indian crafts as high end. They look at French and Italian craftsmanship and Polish glass and Scandinavian furniture, and that's what has a higher perception than an Indian product. That, I think, hit me really, really bad. I'm like, this has to change somehow. We need to do something about this. We are making the most complicated products in the world that Italians will not touch, that the French will not touch, and we still don't get the right to to say that it's
perceived as somebody.
It's made by us. It was also a question of they did not want for their competition to track back as to this is the factory that makes it. So it was multiple reasons, and I can understand. It makes business sense to them. It makes business sense to them, but what didn't work for us is that we in the whole thing were not being recognized as a part of the process. That is not level playing ground, right?
Part of the evolution as well.
Exactly. So that's when we decided that we're going to start LOCO as a company, and under LOCO, we then started 3 different brands, one after the other, like looking at where where what we've learned in those 15 years, and where we feel there is a need for design intervention. Pintark was the first, which was exposed in 2014 in a show in Bombay. Amazingly well received. It's primarily about surfaces that we design, which can then be used on walls, doors, wardrobes, cabinets, wherever. The beauty of what we do is that the number of materials we end up using, we haven't seen another company in the world using that. So from leather to wood to all the way up to carbon fiber and materials that you wouldn't have heard of, like hexatexalium and Xylon and all those things. So some of them have been banned, because they're used in space research and stuff like that. So we can't use them. But all that learning from school and from college, and then from all the brands that we worked with, we needed to create an Indian identity in that sphere, which is right at the top. So today, I mean, our brand Madeke is now being launched in the US in the month of November. For the first time, we are exposing it there. And we are going to be competing with some of the biggest brands in the world. Yeah. And for the first time, I actually made a comparison chart in terms of price points and things like that. And I'm like, now I think it is time. It's getting serious. So we need to know, where we are at and who's our target audience. The third brand is called Taamaa. Taamaa purely started out of a very different need that we felt in India. Is that a lot of people used to come to us and they would say, that you're too expensive. This product is too high end and stuff like that. And it's not expensive because we want to make it expensive. It's expensive because of the materiality of it and the process of it and the craft of it and all of that. And we felt that it is really unfair that we're not doing something which is more reachable, because there's a huge gap in the country where a well-designed product can go into a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom place, where people don't have the amazing amount of money in their banks, but they still aspire to buy something, buy something beautiful. Or so we call it Taamaa. It's basically soul in Japanese.
Oh, not Tamba, not derived from etymology, is not Tamba.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not that. It's so Taamaa is basically soul in Japanese. So we right from the beginning, when I was giving my first design brief to the people in the team, I said, anything that gives you joy is Taamaa. You need to look at something, and if it puts a smile on your face, that is Taamaa. It is not about I have arrived or that. So Madeke is about expansion of the chest. It is about pride. It's about I have arrived and the aspiration of reaching somewhere. Taamaa is more about acquiring something that you love. Every time you walk into the house, you have a smile on your face because you've seen something quirky, lovely. For example, the first thing that we did was board games. So we wanted to bring out the Indian games out of the drawer and put it on a coffee table. That was the brief. That, I mean, all of us have probably bought maybe 10 Ludos in our life, and
Sure.
10 snakes and ladders. They're all lying in drawers somewhere. You lose the chips and the dice and all of that. And then when you're buying it, your aspiration is, I'm going to put my family together and we're going to sit down and play board games. It happens once, maybe twice, and then it goes into a drawer and nobody really bothers about it. So that was the intention, that you pick up that product and you put it and you make it in a way that it might be a little expensive, but it's a matter of pride to have it, and it's a matter of joy to have it. So it's so beautifully made that you want to see it every day. You don't want to put it in a drawer. So that's where we started from with Taamaa. And I actually struggled in the beginning to figure out a space for it to be showcased. I traveled across the country. One store in Bombay in Kala Ghoda that I felt was the right fit. I couldn't find stores which had that contemporary, very graphic products which could have a space of their own. You had Shoppers Stop, which is pile of products, and you had a whole lot of other stores which were just piles of product. Like you walk in and you're like bombarded with information. Here we wanted it to be presented like as if it's in a museum. It's one product. It has its own space, a breathing space, so that people can actually look and enjoy it. And that was the whole point of Taamaa. We couldn't find a space. So for the longest time, we struggled with it. And then during COVID, so we were supposed to launch Taamaa in Maison in Paris in 2020 or 21. And then COVID happened. And then we are like, what should we do? So Maison also has a platform called MOM.
Called?
MOM.
MOM.
Which is Maison Online something, So we put it up on that. And so when we started Taamaa, we used to be like, someday if we can sell it in design museums, if we can sell it in MoMA, I think we would have arrived. This
I was just
product
about to throw in MoMA and you mentioned it.
Yeah. I said the product would be, then we would know that we're doing something right. And Basho, the first people who picked up the product from that platform was MoMA, New York.
Nice.
And you see, the moment that happened, like, oh my God, we're doing something really right, and I think we need to really push it. So ever since then, we've tried to push it a lot more than we did earlier. So now it's available on multiple platforms, but we also started a London office. We're now starting a New York office, and then the Middle East. So so first Madeke and Taamaa will be available to people, in different places. And Pintark is more like an architect's product. It's like an interior solutions product. So it has a different business proposition, a different plan, a different way of selling. That's our brand journey. Um, the latest one is called Caur.
Yeah, CAUR.
CAUR.
Is Haria doing something in it?
So Haria. I had wanted Haria to work with us for the longest time. And every 6-8 months he would pop in and we would do a little bit. So he was showing in Milan and he said, "Can I get products made?" And you know how he is. He's always that very sorry about asking things. And I'm like, this is your place. You don't need to think. So it was always going on. And I used to keep telling him, I said, we should do something together. We should do something. This whole idea of Caur, had originated a long time ago. It was always playing up in our heads that we need to do something with the amount of waste that we produce in the factory. Something where people people find a reason as to why you need to recycle, why you need to upcycle, why you need to reuse, but just by making small little bags out of things wouldn't have sorted it. So we wanted to do something where it was aspirational. It was like you can take scrap and make it into something absolutely fantastic and beautiful. So we wanted that differentiation between the two ends. So then I called Haria. I said, listen, this project is for you. You have to do it because this is absolutely what you would love. And the first time we sat down together, I said, my first brief to you is you will never worry whether it will sell or not. Because the moment you start worrying about that, it means you're not being true. We have reached this point where we can afford at least to do this much, that when we have a dream, we give it our fullest. So that's how we got involved in it. And so yeah, all the jewelry is being designed by him on Caur. Yeah.
Nice.
So Caur, what exactly does Caur do? Smaller products.
Yeah. So in Caur, it's coming back full circle. We started with jewelry. The reason for using jewelry as a symbolic product is that when you talk of aspirational products, for men it may be fast cars. For women, they like jewelry is one of the products that they think of. And we thought we can't build cars out of scrap. We can't, let's try and do something where people, when they see the jewelry, they should say, "Oh, this is made out of scrap metal or scrap leather." That is the amount of differentiation that we wanted to create. So it's about small products right now. And what we plan to do with it is that we slowly step into leather and fabric and wood and whatever we produce within the factory, but also try and encourage other people to use the scraps in their factories. So, for example, we had the opportunity of building an installation in Bombay last year at a film festival called Architecture and Design Film Festival.
Conserve thing.
Yeah. So we did the Conserve. So that was also a platform to showcase Caur. It was also to use all the scrap in the factory. So we told the carpenters, "Ke aap ko jo dil mein aata hai banao." I only drew lines that this is the structure of it. You get together as teams and you produce one panel, which will be a wall in this house. Amazing exercise. So for the first time in my life, I actually realized how difficult it is to let go and to delegate to that point where you have zero influence on what is going to come out. Materially, you don't know what kind of scrap and you don't know how they're going to deal with it. So for me, I think it was a huge, huge breakthrough because I now know that I can even trust the people on the floor to come up with something fantastic if the opportunity is given. So that, and then recently we designed a trophy with an architect friend. And he said, "What material do we use?" I said, "We've got lots of scrap wood. Why don't you, come to the factory?" We actually used all the scrap wood and we designed a trophy around that. So we're trying to, do those small little things where people find reasons to use the So the conserve the installation. So we've tested it through these monsoons. We installed it in one of our friends' farm, and the idea is to take that and turn it into a library in my village. So the kids can then, and people can donate books, and we can put it in there.
And what's the studio? But I'm sorry, I can't pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Yeah.
Xaxti.
Shasti.
Shasti.
Yeah. So Studio Shasti is an architectural practice.
Okay.
In Goa. And so there's a friend of mine who we had worked together with to create Armani's show flat here in Delhi. He's an Italian. And so Maro was wanting to move from Italy after COVID, and he said, "What are the opportunities?" And I said, "Why don't we just set up a practice and you run it?" So Studio Shasti is primarily handling architectural projects from Goa.
How do you manage your time between all of these? And now that you have so many brands, is LOCO Design the main face of everything, or does each brand have an identity of its own? And where does Caur, which was the main the starting point, where does all of this amalgamate, and how do you work around that?
So if you look at it, the gist of everything is the same. It's all about material manipulation. It's got nothing. It's nothing else. It's that. So Caur does all the manufacturing. LOCO does all the design. The brands are all under LOCO, and they are aimed at different segments of people and different typology of product. So if you really look at it, it's as simple as that. And the sphere is the same. It's primarily home and personal objects. The materials are common amongst everything. So there is a well-built structure. As far as my time goes, I start working at 6:30 in the morning and finish probably by 7-8 every day. The beauty of my work is that I don't set my own calendars. My calendar is set by all the people who are, who need me in different places at different point in time. So it is about you handle your thing. If there is a meeting in which I am needed, you send me a message. The only question I will have is there space in the calendar? And if there's space in the calendar, plug it in, and it's a common calendar for everybody in the studio and the factory. And I just look at it on Monday morning, and I know what my week looks like because everybody else has planned it for me. So it's also the thing of giving people, it is more about giving them so much liberty that they will have control over your time. You see, people don't realize these things. Like I was telling you, Bashav, I don't have a table. I don't work off a desk. I go to people's desks and work with them. There are meeting tables in different parts of the studio, different parts of the factory where I just sit and work with people. There is no one place. My work bag is a huge bag which I carry from one place to the other, wherever I'm going. And even then, I see that there are rows of people who come, who have questions for me all the time. And I always tell them one thing, that all you need to do is just put together a list and send it to me, that these are the questions I have. Give me time to think. By the time I'm sitting with you, I may already have certain answers, and whatever I don't have an answers for, let me have time to research, and get back to you. So planning of time is, of course, there are certain things that need to be done in a particular day, which are absolutely critical. I mean, there are lots of amazing people who teach you these things online nowadays. My favorite is a guy called Simon Sinek. He
Start with why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, brilliant. I mean, the way he talks about things, and he strikes a chord with me because when he is talking, I think I feel as if he's talking to me and I'm talking to him. So it's and there are other people who tell you how to draw quarters and say most important thing, maximum amount of time and stuff like that. So if in your head structured it, then you know that my whatever I need to think through, I have done that before I hit the studio. After that, it's everybody else's time. So I will figure out where am I needed on a particular day most, and I will start from there, and I will finish that job, get to the next place. So it's basically that.
And all of these are organized around the same workspace, or there are different locations, because managing time and different location becomes.
So we've got 2 studios here. There's one team that sits here, one team that sits there, and then there are 4 different factories. Out of that, there are 2 in which I have to sit, where people sit and work with me. So it's primarily those 4 spaces, where I have to spend time. So it's not too complicated. Everything is close by, and we learned from our mistake, of the distance. So we've kept everything close. House is 15 minutes away that way. Factory is 5 minutes that way. So if there is an emergency wherever I'm needed, it's close by. Factories are like 2 minutes away from each other.
Just one last
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Now from you, we hear that, in fact, my first question that I wanted to ask you was, do you have a royal lineage? Because the kind of design sense that you have developed and the products that you develop, it needs a different mindset, like we discussed. And you said that you come from a small village in Punjab,
Yeah.
to doing products which are of this caliber.
Huh.
Where did you develop this mindset of design, luxury, finish, all of this? Because as an Indian, I mean, I'm not, with all due respect, I am not putting anybody down. We as people do not appreciate design, finish, fit, finesse, all of this to the level that any Italian, French, any of them do.
Mm.
How did you get here?
So it's a very important question, I think. I mean, our brand is called Madeke, which is the name of my village in Punjab. Why we named it Madeke was also that we wanted to make sure that we don't let it down. It was to make sure that we are not doing anything which is subpar. But we've learned design from college, and the process of it. The beauty of that entire thing, of that entire education, was that everybody has it in them. You just need to know how to channelize it. And there are words that resonate in my mind all the time. Sangeeta Shroff, for example. We never spoke too much. I mean, I barely spoke to most of the faculty in NIFT. In the first semester, walks into the class and she says, I see that you guys are competing with each other and not sharing information. And I was one of those people, if I had gone to Karol Bagh or to some place to sort something, I would get back a card and pin it on the board so everybody could see it. When she walked into the class, she said, you guys need to understand that you guys are really, really good. There were some 100,000 people who appeared for the test and you only 30 of you. So you're already good. You don't need to prove it to anybody anymore. Just prove it to yourself that you're better than yourself. It was an amazing line, which just completely made me rethink that, why do I need to compete with anybody? I mean, there's nobody to compete. Second was Sharik, for example. He was, we used to have this jury after every semester. And I mean, as a person, I have a very casual way of approaching things. I do it with a lot of intensity and intent, but it doesn't show. I don't like to project, but I know that if I'm doing something, I would have thought it through completely, and before I pen it down, it's already there. It's just that the speed of doing that has increased multifold because of the experience that's there. So while we were in the jury, he saw that I was lagging somewhere. And when they gave me the mark sheet, I just looked at it and I just put it down. I'm one of those people who never even picked up the sheet and said ki itna kyun or utna kyun and this, that, and the other. Never questioned it. So for the first time, and Sharik had never really spoken to me before that. He looked at me and he says, I have a question. And I said, what would that be? And he says, why do you get satisfied by doing a little bit better than everybody else? And that made me really think. And that's been like a rule in my head, that maybe I was actually just looking around, and by doing a little bit more than everybody else, I thought I've done enough. It was just subconscious. It wasn't intended like that, but it was probably there. And that day, it just completely changed me. And that's how, that's why I was always looking for the next thing. That's what probably started that journey of, how much better can this be? And luckily, when I started freelancing and working for people, there were lots of people who were clinical and critical about the quality of the product. I think it also comes from my mother. She's extremely conscious of things, of the food, of the clothes that we wore, and the clothes that she wore, and the way the house was kept, and everything. It had to be, organized in a certain way. So aesthetics, I don't think comes from how you draw. I think it comes from how you think. And if you've come, and if you recognize that part of your life, that you need to be, things need to be done in a certain way to understand proportion, to understand quality and how materials behave and things like that. As long as you give every little detail its due, there is no reason why, anybody couldn't be that good. But besides that, I think it was also the experience of being exposed to so many different brands from across the world, to understand how one brand is different than the other, how one picture frame is different than the other, how a different price point can be perceived by different people. And at the end of the day, the one thing we realized is, regardless of who you are, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants a good quality product for the price that they are paying. So it doesn't matter whether you're paying 100 rupees for a t-shirt, you will still pick it up and check it out. You never think, 100 hi ki to hai. If you're paying a lakh of rupees for the t-shirt, you will still check it out. It's just a matter of perception. So as long as you understand it, that you need to deliver quality to whoever you're delivering it to, there is no reason why the finesse wouldn't come. So I think it's just because of those learnings, and of course with so much of interaction with such amazing minds across the world, and some serious businessmen, and having discussions about strategy and importance of design and importance of quality with so many amazing people. So I think it just became inherent to us at some point. It just came in.
What I basically wanted to know is, when I was researching about LOCO Design and you, all the brands talk about craftsmanship, Indian artisans, and technology. And what we see here definitely tells us that technology is a great support. I mean, that's something that you're definitely using to create all of these. And you've also told us why, how you've got to this stage of getting to this, the finesse of the product. But how does Indian artisan craftsmanship come together to all of this? And how did you come down to only that?
What has happened for the longest time, and it's still happening, it's unfortunate in a certain way. We at some point in time started believing that Indianness is what we need to project to the world. As much as it is important, one also has to understand that there is a time and place for everything. You can't suddenly turn around and tell people that this is what you should buy because this is made by us and we are Indians and this is what India does. We first needed to understand what that part of the world needs, and how can we adapt the crafts in a way that it is acceptable to their aesthetics. Of course, there is a market for Indianness of the craft also, but there's such a wide audience for the craft itself. So we've taken it slow and one step at a time to make sure that we first at least put that craft up to a certain standard. And then we will find a way of saying that this is the Indianness of it. So, for example, in Madeke, we have one of the stories that we would be telling in the near future is called the Modern Maharaja. It is the connect between the Britishness of the Maharajas and the Indianness of the British. So it is and how we are going to contemporize it and put it in context to the people who are going to be eventually receiving it. And the story needs to be all encompassing. It can't just be that this is the way Indian Maharajas lived and hence you should have it. At the end of the day, everybody has a certain lifestyle. Everybody's built a certain house in a certain way. They need to be accepting of the product. So that's where it actually has started from. And craftsmanship is something where I feel that, at some point in time, we forgot what a brilliant set of craftsmen this country has. We started downgrading every single craft and make it cheaper. And we're looking at China, they've taken away the business, and let's try and make it cheaper and compete with them. And suddenly we realized that they've mechanized every process imaginable. And now we're sitting here and we're still talking about craft, and we've run it down to a point where now neither our craft nor our technology is acceptable to people. So what are we going to do now? So the technical side of it, or manufacturing through technology, has already been taken care of by one country now. Again, we should not be making the same mistake of doing what somebody else has done. That is the Indianness of it that we need to bring out. At least try and adapt the craft in a way that it's acceptable to the world, and let the craftsmanship, the hand craftsmanship, be the story of it. Will we be able to scale the amount of product which is there to be consumed by the West by just using traditional way of making things? No, we'd not be able to. And where is the beauty in somebody taking a saw and hand cutting the wood? I can understand that there is a very, very specific niche for that too, but very specific. There are some Japanese craftsmen who will start from actually watering the tree to making a product of it. Long stretch of time. But do we have the luxury of it? At least now we don't. Should we aspire to do that? Yes, we should. Of course we should. We should take it to a point where a craftsman who's a master craftsman should be celebrated for every little thing that he does. From the way he chooses the material, the way he treats the material, and the way. But is there a market of it right now? Until and unless somebody, literally picks them up and puts them on a pedestal and markets them, like how? Maybe there is. Do we have the capacity for it? Neither financially nor in terms of our structure. In the past, we haven't been able to. But now we've reached a point where we are saying that we dared to compete with some of the best brands in the world. We dared to put together a product that's been designed by us or by our collaborators from across the world, and then to take it to their domain and say, look at this, this can be done in India. And they've been accepting of it. It's not that they haven't been accepting of. We've worked with them for 20, 25 years. We know exactly what good quality to them means. And we still know that they're still cutting it short because they still want to control the prices. We don't want to be there. We don't want to be in that space. If we are going to create a product which is like top of the line, then we're going to make sure that every aspect of it is top of the line, whether it's material, whether it's craftsmanship, whether it's the technology behind it, all of that. So that balance is important. So that's probably what has driven us to do what we do.
One of the things that you've actually spoken about fairly extensively is the fact that, and I get it, that for you to be able to grow, one of the cornerstones has been creating processes and systems which in some sense works independently. And that, in my head at least, also ties up to the fact that, other people block your time.
Yeah.
You are available to facilitate everything that is around. If you didn't have systems, that would not work.
Yeah.
Right? So I get that bit. The thing that I kind of could not understand and clarify to me, or correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that you said that processes or systems, one, and infra as the other, was necessary for you to keep your word in some sense to your clients or to the one that you're committing to. Now, that is something that frazzled me a bit, because if somebody is funding you for it, then you put all of these together and then go to market yourself or get business in. But in a running machinery, which is growing and moving forward and building new clients and coming up with newer work, and plus pushing the envelope of design, of quality, of finishing and all of that, also identity, because made in India being pulled away, it's an identity issue. You're taking something intrinsically from me, but not giving me credits for it, right? So in all of this, doesn't it sound like creating systems, processes at one bucket and infra at the other first is a little cart before the horse?
I mean, just in one sentence, we couldn't afford it. We simply couldn't afford it. It was
Couldn't afford the systems and processes.
Yeah, at some point in time.
Yeah.
It had to be built as we went along. Also, there is no example in front of us that what we are doing today, there is no one example literally in the world which is there, right? Who do we follow? Is there a software that can put our thoughts and processes together and deliver us an end-to-end solution? No. We've tried. Every day we try and find new softwares which can actually help us to make things better. Parts of it work, parts of it don't work. Even if we've paid for the entire thing, we adapt only that part and say, let's at least let this work. I mean, during COVID, for example, it was 2020. We started doing projects in 2013, 6-7 years. And we were one of the most sought after factory in the country to be doing projects. Within 6-7 years, again, it's the same story. Who had the time at that point in time to actually sit back and put together systems? But we could build systems for the uneducated, for the craftsman, because we understood the language that they spoke. We could not understand how to build systems for the people who are on the management side, because we had zero experience in that.
Give me an example. I mean, dumb it down for me.
Yeah. So, for example, today, the part that I'm super confident of is the quality of the product which will be made on the floor. I'm super confident of the product that will be designed. There is a gap in the middle, which is the people who handle those processes,
Right.
which is whether people who are doing the drawing side of it. There are people who are going to be managing the project. There are going to be people who are going to be reporting those projects. That part was completely amiss. Before COVID, so it was like a disaster because, we, again, no examples, no softwares, nobody coming and teaching us that this is the way to do it. And we grew at such a rapid pace that we also couldn't put our head up and say, this is going wrong or that's going wrong. Little by little, we said, oh, this is a repeated mistake. We've made the same mistake thrice. How can we close it? Let's put this system in place. And till date, we are constantly shifting our systems to adapt. And there is no one rule to do it because every single project and every single product is different. So how can you really, it's not like accounting that it's entry and exit. It's the same table in 3 different heights for 3 different projects. So the process has to start right from the beginning. But yes, within that, there's a sequencing that one can put together, which makes some kind of a sense that who takes on the responsibility at what point and delivers what to who. That at the end of the day is the system, right?
Right.
That's
right.
what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
If there is no software for it, we do it manually. We do it on Google Sheets. We do it on Excel sheets or whatever. But there is a method now to that madness that we have been put together, which gives me the liberty to say, there are other people who are handling all of that. And I can sit back and say, call me when you need me. Right? They need me for certain things every day. It's not that I've made myself indispensable. I would like to. That is my end goal by the end of it. I would like to come to this office one day and not know what to do. That is the day when I will feel that today is the day when I can actually start aspiring for something completely stratospheric. Before that, my time is dependent on a lot of other people. So what do? I make that time before 9:30 in the morning. But I would like to come here at 10 o'clock and not know what to do. Because that will give me the liberty to then think beyond of where we are today. And there is a lot that we can achieve and there is a lot that we can do. Even, where we are today, we've just about started. We've not even initiated the big things in life. It is not that we've never thought of it. We've just thought of it very differently because there was nobody to guide us. There was no examples to guide us. Infrastructure we knew, right? Machines, kind of people you know. If somebody is doing something wrong in a certain way, you can correct that. When we are starting with a new craft or a new material, we first hire the people who are experts in that. Let them work for 6-8 months, teach us. That's what we tell them. For the first 8 months, you teach us. 9th month, we will teach you. You know, we can't teach you your craft, but we can tell you what you can do with all the skill that you have. So for the first 8 months, we don't expect any magic from them. We don't expect it to sell, nothing. No expectation, zero. Just work, just do things. We will give you things, you will do, you will show, you will tell me, constraints, restraints. 9th month, we'll start challenging you. And that's how you take a craft to the next level, or the quality of the craft to the next level. You have to give them time.
Right. I also wanted to ask, when you're talking about systems and processes, and I get it, it's necessary. You drive a huge machine.
Yeah.
Do you have the same for creative processes as well?
So the one thing which I don't think I can blame any particular thing, or I can find faults with any one particular space, but it is the exposure that I have because of the 25 years of working with so many different brands and learning how do they do things and understanding how do they do things. Most of the people don't,
Very obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the initiation of a process has to come from me. But every now and then we find people, even if they are, so for example, we work with a design professional called Remy from Lyon in France. I found that he thinks very deeply when he's designing a product, so, and he knows all the constraints and parameters that one has to cross before you actually try and make something. We are sitting on his sofa, actually. It's been designed by him. So whenever we find opportunities, we try and engage with those people and try and bring something, lovely to the people. But if I've initiated a process, then yes, there is a method to the madness after that. There is somebody who will take that on, hand it over to the right person. Each person is good at certain softwares. There is a certain product that can be delivered in a certain software better than the other software. So it is, those little things are important to be recognized. You can't be sitting with Photoshop and expecting it to make a 3D model of it, right?
Sure.
So we know that it's so difficult to draw a curve in AutoCAD, for example, so somebody who's working on a 3D Max is much faster in doing that, can deliver a better product. So it's also up to us to understand the limitations of not only the people who are working with that, but also the softwares that they're working with. So yes, there is there has to be a system put in place where the recognition of who can do what better with what is important. So whether it's a craftsman or a product designer, story is the same.
Sure. In whatever you've done so far, you've come to a place where you've created a niche for yourself. People know you globally for a certain quality of work, certain kind of work. That's reputation, brand building, and all of that. And that is also the space that legacy typically gets built, right? I mean, what is your take on where this goes? This is not to say that you're at the end of your career. You just started off, as you've said. But what's your view on how this continues?
There are certain aspirations which were the ground rules for this. I mean, we need to take Indian design quality craftsmanship to the world. That is the obvious thing that we need to do. We need to make sure that the world understands as to there are many more possibilities in this country than just doing, products by the kilo. So that is something which is a clear direction. Of course, this business needs to be built and it needs to go global, and we want to make sure that Madeke is present in all the right places. One of our clients and friends used to joke with us. He says, "Oh, this is Madeke in St. Moritz." So I'm like, yeah, that's the dream. Madeke in St. Moritz. That's the point. But at the same time, Taamaa needs to go into every 2-bedroom house, every 3-bedroom house, where people would look at it and feel nice about owning something. So that's the product side of it. But I really, underneath it all, there is a very, very strong aspiration that I just hope people take these examples and do something with it. Whether it is, and it's not only And I'm not saying that I've created the most amazing example. There are people who've done really, really fantastically well and have set standards. Like I said, my personal ambitions are very, very low. Hence, I never wanted to project myself as the front of it. It's only in the last 2 years that I was literally told by Jitinder, who's a friend and a brand manager and sits in Birmingham. He's like, dude, you need to come out. It's high time. So that's why I'm sitting here. Otherwise, there was a clear instruction to everybody: don't put me in a place where I'm supposed to answer for myself. We are all in it together.
Right. Right.
So, but then I also realized that it is important for us to, come out and tell the story, because if we don't tell the story, then and I know that when I say it with honesty and straightforwardness, because it's really what is there is out here. So I'm just hoping that people will pick up these examples, and in different spheres. And I mean, why can't we produce the most beautiful car in the world? Why can't we produce the fastest car in the world? Why can't we be building the most amazing VTOLs in this country? Why can't we be, chasing the Mars dream? Why is it that and Elon Musk has all the rights to do it? Why is that the US is the place where you aspire and build dreams? Why is this place not equally good? The opportunity is there. The people is there. There's a 1.5 billion people's market in front of you. Go to them. Why do you think that only the Western world is accepting of great ideas? Why is it that we don't think that we have people here? Like I told you, the guy who's going to wear a 100 rupee t-shirt has an equal right of equality than as the guy who will wear a lakh of rupee t-shirt. Deliver it to that guy. I mean, get it done. Then the day that starts happening, I'd be the most happiest person in the world.
I have one more question to go to.
Yeah.
You've owned a space that's difficult to own.
Yeah.
That's aspirational. That's the consequences. Some people aspire to be you as well, right? And aspire to own a business or create a space like yours. But luxury as a category is difficult to own.
Yeah.
It's difficult to create because it aspires. It's something that in some sense does not exist. How would you define luxury? What is luxury? And look at me as that guy who wears that 100 rupee t-shirt. If you had to tell me what luxury is, how would you do that?
It's a very relative term, because to everybody, luxury can mean something different. But I think what is really important is that if you're one of those people who's worked really hard in life and wealth has come as a consequence of it, there is a reason, why things exist which give you the satisfaction and the reassurance that you have done that. Hence, craftsmanship in this world is alive. If people don't recognize that, and when we say, he's got 10 cars and he's got the fanciest cars and he wears the fanciest clothes and he wears jewelry like this and he's got a 10 lakh rupee or 20 lakh rupee sofa. If that guy did not do it, then the percolation of wealth doesn't go anywhere, right? And because he's worked that hard, it is important that anybody who's going to be doing something for that person works equally hard to make sure that he is satisfied with what he's buying. Now, just a price point is not enough, right? It has to be design, detail, craftsmanship, finesse, the way it is presented, the way it is packaged. All of that needs to be there. If I'm producing Taamaa for a person who lives in a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom house, I'm not thinking of him as anybody lower than a person who's living in a $20 million house. To me, they're both equally important. That guy's luxury is to be able to walk into the space and have the same feeling of satisfaction that I've bought something beautiful. The price tag is different. So luxury is not about how expensive it is. Luxury is only about delivering the right thing to the right person because that guy deserves it. And you may choose who do you think is deserving of the craft that you produce? Because if you're really, really good at doing something, you have all the right to go to the top of the people and say, you deserve this, and I can deliver it to you. In my mind, that is luxury. It is, we can give 100 philosophical answers about luxury is time, and luxury is about the ability to sit back and kick back and all of that. Of course, all of that. But at the end of the day, in our world, what is anybody expecting from us is exactly that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to buy a fast car, if I'm going to buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a Koenigsegg, or I feel that I deserve it. It gives me the satisfaction of going really fast, and it gives me a sense of control at a breakneck speed because I've lived my life like that. So this is just an extension of me. It's just not a fast car.
Right.
So that luxury is that guy's extension. 100 rupee t-shirt is that guy's extension. So, it's relative for everyone.
So you mentioned that, you did not want to come out and share your stories. I think it's great that you decided. And I would urge everybody like you to come out, share your stories, because people like me will get deprived of learning from people like you and your experiences. So I definitely would want more and more of your stories and people like you to come out and tell those stories. But before we close, would Mr. Parminder Pal Singh like to be seen as a designer or a businessman?
In Jatin's words,
Go for it.
design for business.
Super.
I find this question sometimes extremely irritating because you design for business. A business needs design. They're interdependent. There should never be a distinction or a differentiation. If you're going to design because you want to project your intellectualism, well, that's not something that I would agree with. So there are two words that are so close to each other and yet they're so different. Do you want to be an intellectual or do you want to be intelligible? I've chosen to be intelligible. I want to be understood, and I want to put forward things with people except for what they are. That's the reason why I did not want to tell stories. But I also understand it is important because I feel that the bigger part of it, which is making people understand that there is a possibility, may not be possible only through the product, and we need to say these things. So if somebody needs to tell them, that it is possible. And most people understand words better than visuals sometimes. So yeah, it's a great compliment.
What has your experience of this chat with us?
So for me, it is what I would say two words: catharticism or cathartic, and reassurance.
Right.
Because there are so many times that you forget the stories that you start off with.
Right.
And when somebody asks you these questions, it is also time when you think back, and because it's not prepared and it's so extempore that you can't really, it's not a performance. It's something where I don't know what you're going to ask me and I don't know what I'm going to say. But I think it is, for me, that's my takeaway from it. And I really think it is necessary because where we are at today, it is not only us, it is everybody else who interacts with us who also needs to tell our story somehow. And I think it is important what you've taken on. That's why I asked you. I mean, how are you doing this? When you said it's all self-funded, I mean, it's great. It's a fantastic initiative. And I know, at some level, you take away a lot from it. But like I said, it's a transaction. And that is, I respect you for what you're doing. Fantastic.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes.
You should too.
I know. I appreciate.
Thank you so much for making time for us.
You're very welcome.
We thoroughly enjoyed, and there's a lot of learning experience. I still want to touch and feel your products, which I've done already.
Yeah, please. There's another studio close by. You should go there also.
I actually want to visit your factory as well.
Yeah.
And a big reason for coming in early yesterday was that, but I kind of, then the time got sucked out of it, and I said, okay, fine. Aram se chal, dobara aiyo.
So thank you so much for doing this. And I am definitely going back with a lot of learning from here, being from a similar segment and definitely learning a lot from you. So thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for finding time for us. And it was a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let us know what you think about our conversation with Bubbles, aka Parminder Pal Singh, founder, designer, senior of mine. If you like what you hear and see, share, subscribe, and let your friends know. Thank you so much.